My mom's beautiful because when she her clothes look nice and her earrings and her eyes.
My mother is beautiful because she has beautiful hair.
Is that she doesn't have to put on makeup to be beautiful, she just is.
Beauty can be overlooked and it can be in different ways. Beauty and kindness, beauty and looks, and she's kind. She's always there for us.
She really just wears random kind of dresses and shirts and pants and random necklaces.
Well, mentally, probably because she cares about us more than anything on the planet, as she says.
Hair, body, and head.
Her personality is just beautiful, and how she acts around other people, very caring, very loving. She's just overall a good mom.
Yeah, there are like a lot of people in my family, and she like knows the special things about just you specifically, and she cares about like everyone equally, and she does so much for us.
She has like a really like big heart, and I think a lot of people should find that beautiful.
My mommy is the best because I love her so much.
I would describe my mom as sweet, loving, kind, awesome.
Kind, loving, caring.
Not aggressive at all, and like very kind and gentle.
I would describe her as an amazing, wonderful, smart person.
I would describe my mom as a hardworking individual who never gives up.
Powerful, pretty woman that everyone would want to be friends with.
I love my mom because she loves cuddling with me.
When I am like having like a bad day, she notices. Like even if like my friends don't notice, or like if like my siblings are like not noticing, like she like notices, and she like keeps track of like all of us because we have so many people in our family. She just like how could you not love someone that does that?
My mommy is the coolest one in the whole way. I love her to the middle.
I sing Whitney Houston in the car with her a lot, just have like jam sessions.
I like playing solo with my mom because I always like to knock her out. Me and Mommy like to eat ice cream.
My favorite thing to do with Mom is probably go bowling. Well, I really like to go places. Like for her birthday, we go places and we go to the zoo, and I really like that she lets us go. My favorite thing about my mom is that she likes to dance with me.
That she's so cute.
Yes. Well, she's always concerned about her health, which I like. She's unlike my dad, who just doesn't really, he's, okay, do what you want. My mom makes sure we eat healthy, makes sure we have good dental hygiene. The funniest thing that I've seen my mom do is gymnastics, because she barely knows how to do a backward roll.
I love it when she dances because she has her own mom moves, as I would say, where she does certain things, she'll do this or something crazy.
Yeah, our cats they're outside cats, so they go out in the middle of the night, and she just yells for them in the middle of the night, and it's pretty funny because the neighbors are mad.
Yeah. I like when she sings this milk song that I would only drink my milk to it if she would sing it. She goes, milky milk, 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 milky milk, 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 milk.
I love her very much, and
Well, why do you love her?
Because she's nice.
And does she help you with anything?
Shush.
Okay.
Mommy always helps me with homework, and there's this impossible homework page today that she helped me with, and it was
Claire, on focus.
Make two of the shape, even though it's the same shape that you want to make two of it inside the shape.
It was impossible.
Well, happy Mother's Day. Thank you for joining us today for Mother's Day, and we hope that just some of those kids from our community are our way of saying thank you to you. So whether you're here in the chapel, thanks for joining us. Those of you watching online, we appreciate you joining us for Mother's Day. For those on the atrium, sorry we can't be in the tent. Too much rain and temperatures. We're hoping to be back in the tent next week. Weather and cicadas bearing our decision, but thanks for being there today and being flexible. Well, today is Mother's Day, and with that, we're going to be celebrating moms together. And what we heard from the kids is all the different ways in which moms have impacted us and influenced us. But maybe this next song is a way that you might hear the voice of your kids. If they were singers, and if they could put what they feel to words, maybe it would sound a little bit like this. Let's listen together.
She'll take you in and feed your friends. Her open arms are welcoming. She'll rub your back all night when you're crying. She'll listen to you tell your story, hold your fear and all your worries, help you find the truth when they're all lying. Even when it's hopeless, she keeps trying. She's your mother, you love her. Won't be another place like her again you call home. She stands here to help you. There's nothing she won't do. As long as she's alive, you're not alone. You've got each other. That's your mother. She fixes all the broken things. When you're in love, she's got a ring to give to you. She hopes you'll give away. She don't care who you give it to, where they're from, if they pray like you. As long as you're good to you, that's enough. First thing she taught you was love is love. She's your mother, you love her. There won't be another place like her again you call home. She stands here to help you. There's nothing she won't do. As long as she's alive, you're not alone. You've got each other. That's your mother. When you fail her, when you're afraid, crying in the careless mess you made, she'll make you clean it up yourself, offer you a little help, and dry your weary eyes when you let her. She'll look at you and know you can do better. She's your mother, you love her. There won't be another place like her again you call home. She stands here to help you. There's nothing she won't do. As long as she's alive, you're not alone. And the secrets in your heart she's always known. She's a beacon, a harbor, a lighthouse, a armor, a promise and a blanket when it's colder. You'll understand it more when you get older. You've got each other. That's your mother. You've got each other. That's your mother.
Well, this Mother's Day, if you notice on the images behind me and the colors of the visuals, we're looking at the beauty of an almond tree. And an almond tree is a metaphor in the Bible of beauty and things we can notice about God, about the women in our life. And an almond tree, what's interesting about it is it's a combination of both beauty, but also in the Middle East, it was the most flexible, the most bending of the trees you might come across. In the Middle East, when the breezes came their way, it was the one that could flex and it could bend and it could adjust to the circumstances around it. And so today we're looking at a woman in the Bible. You may not have heard of her before, but her name is Lydia. And some say her name comes from the almond tree, the bending one. We're going to look at what it means to bend. And think of like the almond tree as the palm tree of the Middle East. A palm tree is able to flex in a hurricane because it's just that flexible. It's beautiful, but it bends. I was in Florida recently, and while I was there, I was hanging out with a group of couples and some mothers and some grandmothers. And I was mentioned to me that there's over 100 different types of palm trees. Like, no way, maybe 4 or 5, 100 different types. And we began to notice all the different leaves, all the different textures, all the different barks. Some of those barks look like it was like a pineapple. Others look very, very smooth. And I realized, how could I have seen palm trees my whole life and never noticed some of those details? More than that, as I was talking to this one grandmother, she was telling the story of what it looked like for her to lean in to her granddaughter. She and her granddaughter came to very different conclusions about particular issues related to politics or culture. And as they were talking, I could hear this grandmother saying she was trying to lean in to their relationship and make their relationship more important than the issue they disagreed on. It was just beautiful to see that kind of leaning in of a grandmother. And then I wondered how long it would take this 20-year-old to notice how hard that was for grandma to do and to notice how much flexibility had happened there. Last year, in the throes of COVID and all the challenges and all of our systems got thrown around, Quinn was having some behavioral issues. I have a 12-year-old son with autism, and my wife was just coming out of the recovery of a second back surgery, but things were starting to go well. And I noticed on my mom's Facebook page, she posted these words. One day, when my children are grown, I hope they still come through that front door without knocking. I hope they head to the kitchen for a snack and they rifle through the mail looking for their old favorite magazine. I hope they drop by unannounced, come in, and feel the weight of adulthood leave. For they are home. For my children, my door will forever be open. I was so impacted by that. I was talking to my wife. I said, I'm going to get a little extra support for you. I want to try and surprise my mom. We haven't been home in a little bit because of all the challenges the last couple of years. And so sure enough, I got in the car early one morning and I headed there, and I got there around lunchtime. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, a little town called Morton where I went to high school, and a smaller town called Groveland that I lived in. As I got close to the Morton exit, I called my mom and I said, hey Mom, what are you up to today? She had no idea I was coming. She said, I'm having lunch with a friend. Oh, great. Where at? In Morton. I took the exit. Oh, what kind of food are you having? Mexican? Huh. Where's there a Mexican restaurant in Morton? Oh, by where the old Kmart used to be. I took another turn. As we kept talking, I realized that she was already seated in the outdoor seating because of COVID, and she's got her back to me, and we're still on the phone. Now, I hadn't been home in a little bit because of all the challenges the last couple of years of what we've been juggling. And I said, well, what are you ordering today? She said, well, I'm having some chicken chimichanga. I said, oh, my favorite. I'm now 10 feet behind her. I said, do you think you could order me one? And classic my mom, putting other people's needs of her own, your instinct was, well, sure. Well, wait, how would I get it to you? To which I tapped her on the shoulder and said, well, how about I have lunch with you today? And her jaw drops open. What are you doing here? And we just had the best time for the next couple of days, playing games and talking and laughing and just enjoying each other's company. It wasn't until this week I told her that it was that Facebook post that she put on a year ago that inspired me, as well as her brother was going through some health crisis. And we went up to my grandmother's house while I was there and got to go to the gravesite where my grandmother and my grandpa were both buried, and I hadn't been there in 10, 20 years, and just really celebrate our time together. I thought, mothers, my mom certainly bent and put the needs of so many people ahead of her own, and it was a real joy to be able to bend in her direction as well. You see, motherhood is the honoring of both bending and beauty, but also fruitfulness and flexibility. What does it look like for us to honor in all the women in our life, the ways in which they show beauty, the way in which they bent to put our needs ahead of our own, and the ways in which they've been fruitful in our life and flexible to what we need? And I hope you will notice the little beautiful things that maybe you've taken for granted, like those palm trees. First is the beauty and the bending. We're introduced to this woman named Lydia, and Lydia comes from a group of people called the Lydianites in history, which are from the Hittite Empire. To which you're like, I've never heard of the Hittites. Well, the Hittites or the Lydianites are the people who invented coinage. To which you're saying, what's coinage? Well, there used to be a time that we had circles made out of metal that we kept in our pocket with dead presidents on it. I know we haven't done it since credit cards, but the coinage was invented by the Lydianites. And she has a long history of actually commerce and success in her ancestors. Well, we pick up the story in the book of Acts because Paul is heading from a little town called Troas, and he's heading toward Philippi on a boat. And it's here he's going to meet up with a woman, the bender, or the almond tree, Lydia. Here's what it says. It says, when we were sailing from Troas to Philippi, in Macedonia or modern-day Greece, we came across this major metropolis, Philippi, the New York or the Chicago of its day, and it was the foremost city in that part of Macedonia. And we were just going to stay there a few days. Now keep that in mind. Paul, he's got things to do. He's only going to be there a few days. Keep that in mind. Major city. And now when they come there, they notice that it's on the Sabbath, which is the Jewish day of Saturday. And on Sabbath, there's a group of people, Gentiles, not Hebrews, who are kind of gathered around the river. And they're gathered there, and they're having a prayer service. Prayer was done there customarily every day. Kind of a rhythm of prayer was made there. And there's a community, a group of friends who would talk about God, and very, very wealthy people, very, very affluent people who had been very successful in a big metropolis. And yet they were taking the time to prioritize their spiritual life, to prioritize friendship, to prioritize God. And there they meet Lydia, and she was a seller of purple. So what? Well, purple was a commodity that only the royals, only the highest of affluence could buy in that culture. So this woman was a very successful, high-end salesperson in a very, very affluent and very, very challenging industry. And she'd been successful. And yet she worshiped God. She wanted to know, I need more than success. I want significance. And just in that little snapshot, we see a woman who had the beauty of success and the beauty of influence, right? She had the beauty of seeking after God and joining other people in that journey. It's the beauty of friendship. How many of us get so busy in our career we don't prioritize friendship? And yet the beauty of her making friends and talking about life and supporting each other was a priority in her life. And look at all the things you notice in that text just by taking a moment to kind of see a little bit of her life. Think about the women in your life. Have you taken time to notice their strengths? Take a walk with me. Let's walk through an almond orchard together, and let's try and notice the different strengths of the women in your life. Now, some women, first thing you notice is their kindness, the gentleness of their words. Others you would say, no, I don't notice that one at all about my mom, but man, she's a truth teller. She has helped me realize that is something, don't fall for that lie, and that's nonsense. She's taught me how to be discerning or wise. Some of our moms are very, very loyal, great listeners. Others are incredible at perseverance. Man, they have been through hell and back, and they just kept on persevering. Maybe another woman in your life, maybe it's your mom, she's just selfless. You and she are very different, and she and you have worked really hard to adapt to one another, to prioritize each other despite your differences. How about not just the different strengths? What are the different women that God has used in your life? Think about all the women that have influenced you. How about your sister? Right, you remember having big fights with your sister growing up, but have you ever noticed the woman she's become? The way she's grown into who God has made her to be? Oh, you remember all the fights and disagreements, but are you noticing the beauty of what God's been doing in her? Maybe it's your stepmother. You remember all the turmoil of your stepmother, but you ever thought about the way she adapted and tried to love and tried to come into your family? Maybe it's your daughter. Have you seen how beautiful she's become? How wise she's become? How kind she's become? Maybe it's your grandmother or your aunt. Maybe it's your first boss. Maybe it's a coworker. But take the time to notice the beauty of all the different attributes of God and the women that God has used in your life to influence you and to shape you and have you become who you are today. I was talking to a mom in our church about a month ago, and she described her spiritual journey here at Horizon. She said she really wasn't into the Bible, Jesus, or God, but she had questions she was seeking. She came to our church back in the CCD days and immediately found a community of people who made her feel welcome, despite her, as she said, dumb questions that she was asking. She could ask any question, and she felt warm and welcome, and she felt a confidentiality to share struggles she was having on trying to live up to her own expectation or the culture's expectation of what it means to be a mom. As she began to grow spiritually and find a group of women who befriended her and cared for her and taught her how to pray and read the Bible, she began to share this newfound spiritual journey with her husband, who started to come to church, and her kids, who are now teenagers, who began to have an increased spiritual interest. One of them said one day, "Well, Mom, can you prove that God loves me?" To which she simply said, "No, but can you prove that I love you?" "Well, I feel it and experience it." She said, "That's kind of how I feel about God. I'm sure there are philosophical proofs, but I can feel God's love and I can experience God's love, and that's why I know it's true." And that really became a turning point for him to understand his own spiritual journey, his own understanding of God. I was talking with a doctor a few weeks ago who began to describe his early career journey. Things are very, very busy, building his practice. And his wife was farther along with him spiritually, and so she picked out the church for them. And he said, it was because of her journey, I began to have more spiritual interest, so much so that I learned about grace because of the way my wife forgave me for dumb things I did. The way my wife was kind to me. I began to see the attributes of God through the way my wife lived. In fact, my wife even had to challenge me. There was a season of my life I got so caught up in career and not prioritizing seeking after God like Lydia that she had to sit me down and say, "Why are you in this family anyway? You're never around." And it was a wake-up call, and I changed my schedule, and I began to prioritize time with her and time with the kids, and I'm so glad she had the courage to say that, because I didn't miss out on that phase of my kids' life that I would have. All the ways in which we bend to each other's needs, all the beauty of challenge, the beauty of community, the beauty of faith and grace. A couple of years ago, I was at a restaurant, and there's a whole group of women from Horizon at a booth next to me. So I sat down. I hadn't said hi yet because I was going to eavesdrop, and so you don't say hi if you're going to eavesdrop. And so I was listening in as they were describing just the challenges of being a woman in our culture, the challenges of the pressures of trying to live up to everyone's expectation, your own expectation, your friend's expectation, the glaring eye from somebody else's expectation, the culture, just always having to be perfect all the time. And as they were discussing that and kind of processing that, the one said, and of course, and with all that, we got to look good all the time, right? We got to look good no matter what time of day it is. We got to look beautiful. We got to look like that billboard. We got to look like that model. It's just so hard. To which another woman piped up and said, "Yep, and the guys know nothing of it. They all look the same when they turn 50. They've lost their hair, and they've got the dad bod." Oh, yeah. And all the women burst out laughing. And the thing about us with guys with our dad bod is, we can look in the mirror and feel like we look just like we did at 18. That's how confident we can be. There's a culture that doesn't celebrate the type of beauty that God notices and that God celebrates. And you can think you're not beautiful in a culture when God is just singing songs over your beauty. The beauty of how you've bent to the needs of other people as well is the beauty you're showing Him. The second thing we honor is the fruitfulness and the flexibility of the almond tree. Think about the flexibility again, the kind of tree that can take on strong winds and not get knocked over. We said that with Lydia. There was a history that when there was enough Jewish elders in a big city, they would put together a synagogue. And here in Philippi, as big as it is, there's not a synagogue yet. There's no place to meet to have church. It'd be easy to say, there's no church, I guess I just won't prioritize it, I just won't make it happen. But Lydia is flexible enough to say, no, let's get a group of people who want to meet. Let's meet down by the river. Let's do it every week, it's customarily. Let's prioritize our spiritual life. It's not like they were bored and didn't have anything to do. They had lots of success, but they wanted to be flexible and adapt. And it was here in that environment that Paul shows up and Paul begins to talk about Jesus. And it says that what she heard that day, that God the Lord opened her heart to listen to her, to lean into this message. If you go to Philippi today, that river is still there. And rivers are flexible as they weave their way through the topography of dirt and soil. And it was here at this river that Paul walked up on Lydia and her friends and began to talk about Jesus. That small group of women there will eventually become followers of Jesus, and they will start a church. And that church will not only thrive, but it will become one of the places that Paul writes a letter to, what we know as the book of Philippians, to which he describes some things he may have shared with Lydia that day. Let me tell you about the God I'm describing. He's not like Zeus, and he's not like Apollo, the Greek gods you've heard of. Oh, no. We have a God who is all-powerful, and I want this mindset to be in you that was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, Jesus was God, he made himself of no reputation, but he came in the likeness of man. Our God was so flexible, he became immortal. So flexible, he's willing to die for other people. So focused on other people's needs, he gave up his own joy, his own happiness to come and to be bruised and abused and crucified. And Lydia's like, I have never heard of a God like this. A God who would flex toward mortals and love mortals and care for mortals and die for mortals. Maybe that day he described the motherly love of Jesus. Jesus one time is overlooking Jerusalem. And when he does, he sees his kids, the Hebrews, about to go through an incredibly difficult time that history records as the destruction of the temple at 70 AD. And Jesus says, like a mother hen longs to bring the broods of the chicks under her wing, I just wish I could protect them from what's coming, but they're not willing. They don't want to listen to what I have to say. They don't think I know what I'm talking about. But man, I just want to protect them. I just want to love them. And I wonder if that's the day that Lydia heard about this motherly love of God, this flexible God, and she said, I want to know a God like that. How is your mother? Your grandmother? Your mother-in-law? How have they flexed for you? Oh, it's easy to remember all the things you disagree with your mom on, but let's take a moment and remember, how has your mom been flexible for you? Let's start with, you remember how her body had to flex for you? She has stretch marks to prove how flexible she was for you. How she got up early to get you on the bus, how she prepared things for you, meals for you, how she had to figure out how to have her business career going at the same time, stop and go to that select soccer match or show up to that event for tennis or go to that swimming meet. Think of how many times that you didn't open up a lot, but when you did open up, she stayed up a little bit later to listen. When you were in the hospital, she came and visited you. She said, what can I do or how can I help? Think of how many ways she took her schedule and she bent her schedule to come and to meet your needs, flexing her own priorities. I was talking to a friend at a funeral several years ago. Her mother had just passed away, and she was in her 50s and, in the throes of teenagers and trying to, drive people anywhere and everywhere. And she said, oh my goodness, it's so hard to juggle it all. Figure out how to be at this and meet this person's need and get this taken care of and kind of have all these expectations on me. And you know what struck me, she said, is my mom did this stuff all the time. And I never even thought she'd be tired. I never even realized that she'd be worn out. She made it look so easy. That I'm now in my 50s, and I've just started to notice everything my mom did 35 years ago. That's true of all of us. We're all a little hard-headed and self-focused. So take a moment to notice the ways in which your mom and your sister and your grandmother and your stepmother have adapted and flexed to you. But also fruitfulness. The thing about the almond trees is designed to bring forth fruit, right? Fruitfulness. In fact, each one of those flowers will eventually become an almond, a nut. Now think about this for a moment when you think about your mom. You gotta be a little nuts to become a mom, don't you? You gotta be a little nuts to do it because you're gonna be raising several nuts, and you're gonna hear all the moms before you say, these kids are driving me nuts, huh? And you decided to be a mom anyway. Despite what it would do to your body, what it would do to your budget, what it would do to your schedule, you said, I want to be fruitful. And it wasn't just literal fruitfulness of having children. It's also the fruitfulness the Bible describes of pouring his fruit into other people. He calls it the fruit of the Spirit, but when you invest in other people by giving joy or peace or courage or wisdom to other people, you're pouring the fruit into others. That's what's interesting about Lydia. Lydia is so impacted by God opening her heart that she says, hey, Paul, I want my whole household to know about this. The Lord opened her heart from the things that Paul said, and she and her household were baptized. But here's what's interesting. The Bible doesn't ever tell us that Lydia was a mom. It doesn't tell us if she was married. Because she was a high-end dealer, her household could have included just all her household employees. So whether she was a literal mom or a spiritual mom, God wants to honor womanhood and motherhood, that you can have spiritual influence with a literal family or a spiritual family. And she's so impacted by what God's doing in her heart, she says, I want everybody I know in my household to know this message. Hey, Paul, will you come to my house and tell people about this? Now, remember I mentioned to you that Paul really wanted to get on with it and get to the next city? We got to go, 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 more cities to see. But Paul says, she persuaded us. I bet she did. We're talking about a high-end closer, right? But at the end of the deal, at the end of sales time, you need somebody who can close the deal. Lydia can close the deal. And even the Apostle Paul, which is no pushover, he's a, intellectual giant. He's written incredible things that have transformed history, but he couldn't withstand the persuasion of Lydia, who closed the deal and got him to stay a few more days to tell her household about Jesus and about God. In fact, they become such friends that Paul will go through a brutal time when he will be beaten and punished and whipped and stones thrown at him. In the middle of all that, he'll say, where can I go for encouragement and somebody to kind of patch me up? Let's head to the household of Lydia years later. And it was here in that household he felt welcomed, encouraged, loved, and patched back together. Remember, I told you she started this little group of people in Philippi that eventually becomes the church of Philippi, and she certainly led it, at least at the beginning stages. And Paul will write a letter to them years later, and he'll say, there's a spirit in this church that's not in any other church I've ever been in. There is a spirit of giving and receiving that you guys are doing that I just don't see anywhere. I think that's Lydia's influence. Lydia just was so generous and so impacted by the generosity of God, she couldn't help but build a community of people who wanted to be generous and caring because of the God she'd found. In fact, the Bible, though Lydia may or may not have been a literal mother, the Bible's filled with actual mothers, and each of their names tells us something we can notice about the women in our life. Eve, her name means the giver of life. For some of us who've had a troublesome relationship with our mom, we're just going to at least honor them for giving us life. For others of us, it's Sarah, the noble woman, the princess. For some, it's Ruth, the compassionate friend, somebody who just is there to listen and be a friend, whatever we're going through. Hannah, whose name means one who's found favor with God. And then maybe these are two you've never heard before. Jenema and Keziah, dove and spice tree. These are Job's daughters. He has 3 of them. And after Job goes through a brutal time of losing everything, he has this encounter with God, which God describes his care, his love for his creation, his love for an ostrich, and his love for an animal, and his love for a horse. And he just describes how loving he is toward everyone in creation. Now, the book of Job, if you open your Bible, it looks like it's in the middle because it's part of the poetry writings. But chronologically, most people think it's the first chronological book written in the entire Bible. And when you get to the last chapter, despite all of his culture, patriarch culture, who did not give any inheritance to women ever, after Job has this encounter with the compassion and generosity of God, he names his daughter Dove and Spice Tree and Eyeshadow, and he gives them an inheritance in his will, something that was unheard of at the time, because he saw how God valued and honored men and women equally. Jesus, Mother Mary, means beloved one, and Lydia, beautiful or bending one. If you go to Greece today or to Philippi today, you will see that they have set up a baptism there. You can get baptized at the very location that Lydia and her household got baptized. Wouldn't that be cool? A celebration of the beauty of her spiritual influence and fruitfulness on generations. In fact, here at Horizon, we do baptisms out on our terrace, and you will see women being baptized. You'll see wives baptizing husbands. You will see moms baptizing daughters. You will see children who've asked their Sunday school teacher or children's teacher to be in the pool with them to celebrate what God's been doing in their life. We're a community that helps you comfortably connect to God through the Bible, and a community of growing Christ followers. And you see that. It's lived out weekly. It's lived out monthly. It's lived out yearly. How do we come together to honor and celebrate and affirm one another? In fact, Sierra Strong is our children's director, our children's pastor, and I asked her, what's a story that you remember from the last couple of years? And she reminded me of the story from 2019 of Savannah, who got baptized here. And I asked her, what was that experience like? So here in the water, you can see Savannah and you can see her mom looking on, and just the joy and pride of a mom. Sierra writes, Savannah was a sweet and spunky girl who attended church with her grandma. She always had a ton of excitement to come to church, and she looked forward to classes. One day, she asked about helping in the tech booth in East Station. She was over the moon. Anytime she was available to help, she wanted to serve. Now, Savannah's mom and dad and brother had never been to Horizon before. But one day, Savannah came running up to me, straight at me, and she shouted, Miss Sierra, guess what? What? I said. I want you to baptize me. I was honored. I asked if she wanted anyone else in the water with her, and she started naming off every single person she could think of. I told her the pool wasn't that big, and we laughed together. So she decided to have her mom and dad in the pool to baptize her. Well, the day of baptism finally came, and Savannah's whole family showed up to celebrate. We climbed into the water, and Savannah's mom, her face gleamed with pride and joy. So I reached out to her mom this week and just said, how did it feel in that moment to see what God was doing in your daughter's life? And here's what her mom said. Savannah would tell her father and I frequently that she wanted to be baptized. She insisted she was ready. We had many talks about what that meant and the responsibility that comes with it. While in the water, I felt great joy as she was blessed by God and committed to serve him. It was encouraging to see the excitement she had when she was baptized. As her mother in the water with her, it gave me a sense of peace that my daughter wanted to serve God and live her life for him. How about you? You ever thought about being baptized? Maybe it's never even crossed your mind. We're going to be doing baptisms in a few weeks. If that's of interest for your family or for you, how we could come alongside you in whatever God's doing in your life. But whatever the ways were that God has worked through the women in your life, let's celebrate the beauty, the bending, the flexibility, and the fruitfulness. And this Mother's Day, I want to encourage you. You've heard the old phrase, extend an olive branch to someone when there's a war, it's a sign of peace. But for your mom, for the women in your life, I want you to extend not an olive branch, but an almond branch. The Bible uses the almond branch as a way of celebrating and honoring and noticing things. I first came across this 2 years ago. We did a series at our exploring service called Benefit of the Doubt, all about the benefits of doubting from the book of Jeremiah. And as I was reading through Jeremiah's story, we came across the story of God handing an almond branch to Jeremiah. He said, hey, Jeremiah, what do you see? Jeremiah's like, the branch of an almond tree. And God says, yeah, you've seen well, for I'm ready to perform my word. And that's it. Like, there's no more explanation. I'm like, how is that helpful? But somehow Jeremiah got something out of that I couldn't figure out how he got out of that. And I did a little research on almonds. The almond tree in springtime, it's the first to flower. It's the first flowers you're going to see on the tree. It's the first to flower, but the last one to bring forth fruit. And God was saying to Jeremiah, you guys are going through a tough time right now as a nation. And I want you to know, like the almond branch, I am here right now. I'm the first to flower. I am the first to be aware. I'm the first call you can make. I am real. I am aware. I am around. I am true. And there's a beauty to that. However, the plan I have, the promises I'm making, it's going to take a long, long, long time till you see the fruit of what I'm doing. Could there be a better description of motherhood? Oh, you've been there for your kids at whatever age. You've been available. Haven't been perfect, sure. Made mistakes, sure, but you've been available. And sometimes it takes years, decades, before anybody notices. Before you see the fruit of your influence and the fruit of your prayers and the fruit of the promises, but you just keep being available, keep waiting. You're the flower, and you're holding on to God's promises, the flower in your life, even though you're waiting for the fruit and you wish He would hurry up. Extend the almond branch, a reminder of God's promises and your role as a woman. When we were doing this series, I was brainstorming with my creative team. What's a new way that we could teach? And I was likened back to a Sunday school class growing up as a kid where we would see everything done with felt board. We had a big felt board, and felt sticks to felt. And I said, what if we cut out all the pictures of Jeremiah and the well he gets dropped in, and what if we tell the whole story with felt? And they said, well, that's a great idea. Who would do it? And I was chatting with my wife, and my wife's just got a master artist and a master craftsman. She can just make just about anything beautiful out of anything. And she says, well, I would love to help make that. Well, she had just had a first back surgery that it didn't work or didn't take, and so she was in severe pain, sciatica pain. She literally laid on the floor of our house for about a year in the last 3 years, just very, very painful. Another surgery was scheduled just a few months later, and I'm like, honey, this is going to be too much for you. And she's like, no, I want to do that. If I can help inspire others and use my gifts to serve others, if this is the role I have to play right now, I want to be part of serving other people and sacrificing for other people. So in incredible pain, my wife made, of all the pieces she made for that series, my favorite one was this almond tree, which had these beautiful three-dimensional flowers. I kept it in my office for a while, and if you look real carefully in the background, you can see the brown almonds just in the background, but you got to kind of squint to see it because it takes a while for that fruit to come. How many ways have our wives sacrificed for us in ways we didn't even notice? Put our needs ahead of their own because they want to care for us and love us, inspire other people. That's what God has for you. And my encouragement to you is that you would take a moment to recognize the beauty and notice all the things that maybe you didn't notice before. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for the beauty of the women in our life. I thank you for my wife. Thank you for my daughter. I thank you for my mother, my mother-in-law. Thank you for my grandparents who are long gone. I thank you for all the different personalities represented there, all the different characteristics represented there. And God, I just noticed so many different aspects of your character. God, we know all of our mothers were not people of faith, but you say that every good gift comes from you. So even women who influenced us who didn't have faith in you, their attributes were expressions of you, and they were beautiful. So God, we say to you, thank you for the beauty of holiness, the beauty of the peace and joy and perseverance we saw in others. But Father, could you just take these next few moments for every woman here who struggles with their own expectations, the expectations of our culture, would you let them hear your voice today, online, in the atrium, in this room? They would hear you say to them that they are beautiful. In Jesus' name, amen.
You are so beautiful. To me, you are so beautiful. To me, can't you see? You're everything that I'd hope for to me. You are so beautiful. To me, you are so beautiful. To me, can't you see? Everything that I'd hoped for, everything I need. You are so beautiful to me. To me.
Well, we hope that was a gift to you and to your family. On behalf of God, on behalf of our church, thank you for being here today. We hope you have a great Mother's Day, and we look forward to seeing everyone next week. See you all then. Thanks again.